The visit of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jaber al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, consolidates the historical Kuwaiti-Saudi relations and strengthens the deep-rooted social ties.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special program covering the historic visit to His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mish'al Ahmed al-Jaber al-Sabah, may Allah bless and protect him, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. On this special program, I will be joined in the studio by a distinguished guest and guests over the phone to talk about this visit as well as the deep-rooted bond between the state of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. So stick around, it's going to be interesting. Welcome back. As I mentioned, today is going to be a very special. The state of Kuwait and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have strong bonds as countries and peoples that goes back for many years. The two countries have developed great cooperation in various fields that includes defense and economy. The strength of the bond between the two countries is evident by today's visit of His Highness the Emir of Saudi Arabia, as it's the first state visit for His Highness since assuming power. To talk more about this visit, and we are going to be joined over the phone by Dr. Mohammed Al-Fahad, Assistant Professor of the Constitutional Law at Kuwait International Law School. Sir, thank you so much. And the first question is going to be, could you tell us about the importance of His Highness the Emir's visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
Hi, and thank you so much. Actually, the best important thing about this visit, when we consider that the first visit of the Highness Sheikh Mish'al Ahmed al-Jaber al-Sabah is to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it makes a very huge indication about the strong relationship between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. And this is historically, we have a very strong relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. From the highest level until the people of the state of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. So there is no, like we can say that the first visit indicate that the huge relationship between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia.
Sir, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia have a historic bond. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Actually, since the establishment of Kuwait or the foundation of Kuwait, we have a very strong relationship between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. The ruling regime of Kuwait and also the ruling regime of the Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia. And when we consider this about the history, we can find that there is a very strong relationship between these two countries. And the main example was in 1990 when we see how the important role of the Kingdom of the important role of the Kingdom of the Saudi Arabia in the war of Kuwait and Iraq, and we consider and recall the important words from King Fahd, the King of the Saudi Arabia, when he said that we and Kuwait are together. We stay together, we go together, we all and always will be together.
That's a very famous saying from the late king. Thank you so much, sir. That was Dr. Fahd, Dr. Mohammed Fahd, Assistant Professor of Constitutional Law at Kuwait International Law. Thank you so much.
The visit of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabr al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, consolidates the historical Kuwaiti-Saudi relations and strengthens the deep-rooted social ties.
As I promised you earlier, we would love now to welcome our special guest right here in our studio, Dr. Talal Al-Adwani, Professor in Commercial and Maritime Law. Thank you so much for sticking around. This is a very special occasion. We would like to have your input regarding this matter. The visit of His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmad al-Jabr al-Sabah, to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How do you see it from your own perspective?
I think it's a very important step, especially that it's occurred directly after the appointing of the Emir in a very short while. This gives a very fundamental importance of his visit to Saudi Arabia, and is sort of a practice being taken off from previous Emirs, Sheikh Nawaf and Sheikh Jabir and Sheikh Sabah, Allah yarhamhum. That's every now and then for their directly after their appointment, they do ally and visit Saudi Arabia, because of a lot of sharing between both, and the very strong bonds between both populations in terms of culture, in terms of faith, in terms of future perspective. And I think it's important that for the Emir, when it visits Saudi Arabia, to discuss the very important files of the region and local and regional files, especially Kuwait and Saudi. They played a very strong roles when it comes to solving out a lot of files, starting from the security files, commercial files. Nowadays we know about Gaza, we know about the blockage of the Red Sea. A lot of files were being taken momentum, such as Dura fields, oil and gas fields, which is combined between Kuwaiti and Saudi borders. All those files, I think, are very important for the Emir when give it a visit to Saudi Arabia, to open up a lot of windows for future cooperation and moving on. Of the previous files has been taken over by the previous Emirs as well. Also will be very good opportunities for Emir to discuss those files and the visions of Kuwait 2030 and Saudi Arabia 2035, and Saudi Arabia's vision of 2030 strategy. Both, if you look at their strategy, both they combine their strategy with the similar, more or less, colors in terms of infrastructures, in terms of social, economy, environment, and diversification of the economy away from gas and oil. So all in all, in fact, the visit is essential to be made, especially right after appointing the Emir in his crown.
The GCC countries consist of 6 countries altogether. They're all brothers. They were founded back in the 1981. And they are just like more than brothers. They live and die together. But there's a special flavor with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia because of the proximity. We are neighbors. We have a deep-rooted bonds relationship between them, and we are not going to forget the 1990 invasion to the state of Kuwait. They opened the doors for us, and it's the best hostess in the world. Could you elaborate on that?
I think very interesting questions when it comes to Saudi Arabia and how it's linked. Like, if I may say, it's like the crown, jewels of the entire countries, and it's linking all the GCC countries together. It's not only location-wise, border-wise, it's also culture-wise. Remember that Saudi Arabia is the center of Islamic, opportunities when it comes to the world. In fact, when it comes to Medina and Mecca, that's strengthen its position internationally, and from there it's also regionally. It's give the empowerment for its size, for its cultural and beliefs and everything. We share everything in the Gulf countries. We share the same similar culture. We share similar faith. We share similar history as well. And if you think about the location of Saudi Arabia, the size-wise of Saudi Arabia compares to other GCC countries, it's linking. It links all the countries together. And in fact, it gives so much of empowerment when it comes to the strengthening of the foundation of those countries together. They coordinate in a way that when it comes to security, defense, and think about it. The histories. If you think about it, hundreds of years ago, the defense histories between those countries, they allies with each other by default and naturally. Now, with the development and with the council, the GCC council, in fact, it's even more. It's becoming more organized, future. That future is altogether linked in one line with the aspect and the same vision that for both countries.
I don't mean to interrupt. You're talking about the side of political side and the historical side. What about the family side? Yeah. They are married between each other. There's marriage. Exactly. They're kind of in-laws between each other.
Exactly.
And they are blending so much good in their community, in our community too. There's no difference between the others.
True. I think we have the same gene. We have the same bloods when it comes to families. Exactly the same families, the same names. You find it in all the GCC countries altogether. Not only Kuwait, in fact, in Saudi and all the rest of the countries. It's a blood relationship more than anything else, and it comes. That's why we have exactly the same. If you think about it, the same culture, with the same attitude, the same behavior.
Same accent too.
Same accent.
I don't think you can differentiate between Kuwaiti citizens and Saudi citizens.
Exactly.
There are so much similarities.
I mean words, phraseology, we use it, and think about even the history. Meals, we have the similar meals. We have the similar, exactly same culture. I mean, when we visit, neighbor countries in the GCC, you don't feel you are, abroad. You feel like if you are living in the same country, it's exactly Kuwait. They have Douaniya.
That's why we call it the big sister in the GCC area.
Exactly. Also think about the shares of the history, the shares of the blood as well, the same families, as I said again. That's all give it a beautiful enhancement to how those countries they coordinate. So it would be very easy. I don't think our leaders find it very difficult to put their plans, to put their visions together, because they find themselves, in fact, it goes hand in hand with everything in history, blood, and family-wise, exactly the same things. You don't feel the difference between both those countries. In fact, yeah.
Dr. Adwan, is getting interesting, and we are just starting. So stick around. I have some other things to talk about. First, let's take a look at our report. His Highness the Emir, Sheikh Mish'al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah. May Allah protect him. bless him, visited the brotherly Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the state visit that was marked with the summit meeting with His Royal Highness the Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, the Crown Prince and the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. Here's more on this report.
His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jabr al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the latest step by the top leadership for bolstering further the close relations between the two brotherly Gulf countries. Bonded with family affiliations, geographical proximity, joint history, and destiny. The mission falls within the framework of regular coordination between the two neighboring countries' leaderships regarding regional and international issues. Leaders of the two Gulf states regularly reciprocate visits. His Highness the Emir's last visit to the kingdom was on June 1st, 2021, when he was the State of Kuwait's Crown Prince. He went there again on October 25th, 2021, for partaking in the first Middle East Green Initiative Summit, followed with another one on December 14th, heading a delegation at the 42nd session of the Supreme Council of the Arab Gulf Cooperation Council. On July 16th, 2022, His Highness Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jabr al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, visited Saudi Arabia to address a speech at Jeddah Security and Development Summit, followed with another mission on December 8th, participating in the 43rd session of the GCC Supreme Council, the GCC China Summit, and the Arab-China Summit hosted by Riyadh. On May 19th, 2003, His Highness Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jabr al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, went to the kingdom to head the State of Kuwait's delegation at the Arab Summit that convened in the Red Sea city of Jeddah. He went there again on July 19th to take part in the 18th consultative meeting of the top GCC leaders and the Gulf Summit with Central Asia states. On October 20th, 2023, His Highness Sheikh Mish'al al-Ahmed al-Jabr al-Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, was in the kingdom, leading the State of Kuwait's delegation at the Gulf ASEAN Summit in Riyadh, and he was there on November 11th, chairing the Kuwaiti delegation at the Arab Islamic Summit, organized in Riyadh. Meanwhile, at the parliamentary level, cooperation between Kuwait's National Assembly and the Saudi Shura Council has been growing through the Joint Friendship Committee, reciprocal visits, and coordination with international and external quarters. A Saudi delegation came to Kuwait in September of 2022 to promote tourist attractions in the kingdom. During the 2023 Hajj season, Kuwait staged 75 flights for transporting the devotees to sacred sites in the kingdom.
You are still with us live here at KTV2, and we are still talking about His Highness the Emir visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. At this moment, we'd love to talk to Mr. Nader Al Ubaid. He's a doctor and he's a financial issues. Sir, could you hear me? And thank you so much for staying with us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity to participate in such occasion.
Tell us a little bit more about the importance of His Highness the Emir's visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Well, by seeing and analyzing the reports that's been shown in your program, We have noticed that around 10 visits, up to 10 visits for the last 3 years. This shows the importance of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to Kuwait and to His Highness Sheikh Mishal. Now, I think with what's going on regionally and internationally, I think this visit will support or at least coordinate between the two countries in the regionally and internationally. We have noticed that in terms of security, I think this visit will touch base on that. We see that the common between the two countries are similar. In terms of economic side, as one of the big producers in the oil sector, I think now stabilizing the market and the economic markets worldwide, I think this is one of the top issues that will be addressed, I think. Now, in terms of exchange and the economic side, we have noticed that, now we are talking about almost 7 billion riyal, Saudi riyal, which, I think in the few years, this number going to be raising up. This shows that, now we need to capitalize on the success of our diplomacy as Kuwait to tie it up with the economic benefits for the two sides. I think this is going to be the new vision for both countries, especially now Saudi Arabia is being recognized worldwide. We need to address something here. The GCC for the last few years as markets, I think became very attractive for the foreign investment. That's, I think, one of the areas that His Highness will be focusing on, especially now Saudi Arabia and the GCC countries are keen to attract more business and foreign investment to diversify their revenues in the near future. If you see the vision for Kuwait and Saudi Arabia are keen to diversify economies, which is very important to go away from single resource to support their economy. I think these kind of things, we have seen that the common ground between the two countries are very promising and will be addressed in this visit.
As usual, you elaborated and you always answered the second question. I have any more questions? Mr. Al-Ubaid, thank you so much for staying with us. The state of Kuwait and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are enhancing the strong relations between the two nations. Their solid ties and regional collaboration are crucial to the Gulf's economic progress. More on this following report.
Saudi Arabia and Kuwait enjoy a warm and friendly relationship based on shared history and cultural ties. Historically, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have a long cultural and economic relations history. For centuries, the two countries have been linked by trade, familial, and tribal ties. They continue to have strong social and cultural relations. Economically, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait are both large oil producers. They have collaborated to coordinate their oil policy to stabilize the global oil market. Saudi corporations invest in Kuwait's banking, real estate, and telecommunications sectors. Regarding the diplomatic relations, since 1961, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have maintained diplomatic relations. The Middle East stability and security are a concern for both nations. They have collaborated on several regional and global issues. And moving to cultural matters, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have a lot of cultural interchanges. because they have a similar language, history, and culture. Saudi and Kuwaiti writers, musicians, and artists interact and celebrate their shared heritage at cultural events. In June of 2021, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait signed 5 memorandums of agreement. They established the Saudi-Kuwaiti Coordination Council. The council aims to strengthen economic ties and promote cooperation between the two countries. The agreements cover a range of areas, including trade, investment, and infrastructure development. The two nations strive to integrate the Kingdom's Vision 2030 and Kuwait's Vision 2035. Under the agreements, the two countries will develop joint projects in many areas, including energy, transportation, and tourism. In addition, the contracts include provisions for the exchange of research and expertise in various fields, such as technology, healthcare, and education. The Council is intended to serve as a platform for regular high-level meetings and consultations, and the implementation of joint initiatives and projects. The Council's work will be overseen by the two countries' Ministers of Foreign Affairs. It will promote cooperation and strengthen ties between the two nations.
We're back once again, and still with us Dr. Talal Al-Adwani. Thank you so much. It's kind of a little bit cold in the studio, but you know, the conversation is going to warm up the whole thing, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Sir, let's go back to the main issue about the visit to His Highness the Emir to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I believe there is a partnership regarding the economy between these two countries. It goes back way 100 years back. But this visit is going to help develop both countries. Do you concur or not?
Yeah, of course, I totally agree. That questions. I think it's one of the important aspects that it's got to be discussed by both leaders when it comes to the economy of both countries. Historical-wise, again, if we go back in the history, they share the same things. They used to have their fundamentals and resources on peels, and also the livestock as well from both sides. The difference between Saudi and Kuwait, that Saudi is a center of Islamic, in Mecca and Medina, where it used to extract every other nationality all around the world to Saudi, and that gives Saudi a very good development of and vision of how they go about the economy and their development. Now, for nowadays, also Kuwait and Saudi, they are sharing the same resources. Part of the resources, gas and oil, and this is one of the important files they discuss, Saudi and in Kuwait. When it comes to, for example, recent files, the Haql al-Durra oil fields, gas fields, it took the momentum already, and they are in the process of their development. And
drilling and extraction, the gas and oil from
exactly.
that little island.
Exactly.
The location, it's about, what is it, how many kilometers from the shores of the state of Kuwait?
I think you're talking about midway between Saudi and,
so around,
Kuwait.
What is it, 50 kilometers from the shores of the state of Kuwait?
If we're talking about miles, you're talking about 35 nautical miles, around, yes, 50 kilometers, around the 50 kilometers or less even. So this is a good aspect to talk about. As I said, taking the momentum, And I believe the oil sectors between Kuwait and Saudi, represented by the Aramco as an oil giant tech company, and the KBC with its subsidiaries companies, they're into enhancing and improving and developing their economic by diversifying the oil sectors by having a new type of let's say new and clean fuels, which is in fact the whole and the international society, they lack of this clean fuels. And in fact, one of major countries, they playing a very strong roles when it comes to producing this type of fuels. However, they also investing, as Kuwait is a country investing in Far East and investing in other countries where they used to invest as well, and until to this day in Europe. Partially and part of their improvement as well and coordination between those two countries is having a strong foundation and links between what their future in terms of even strengthen the barrel price, and they're playing a strong role as well.
You mean the prices of the oil?
Price of oil and gas. All sort of commodities that has been taken from the Gulf countries. They have a very strong...
And they always take the lead in OPEC regarding the prices. Sometimes, they affect and influence everything that goes around. Do you think about that?
I think yes, if you see about those countries, how much they taken of the value of the oil. There's a reservoir they have, how much is. I think it gives both countries, Saudi and Kuwait.
Sometimes we have the feeling they are on the same page. They complement each other.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If the oil and gas is powering in the same location and they taking it out, extracting it from both ground. Together, the ground, from let's say a joint ventures.
And they do, and they share the same oil field in Wafra.
Exactly.
That goes to show you that they are in harmony.
I think very big time if you think about the harmonies between the
In your expertise, your field, the maritime, we share shores together. When we sleep, it's not too far from Al-Khafji. People go in and out for fishing, and sometimes they go on picnics and stuff like that, and they have to, both countries, they facilitate and make it easier for each citizens. What do you think about that?
I think about the security. We have the same system, we have the same security nowadays. Even you get through cross the borders with your civil ID rather than the passport. So you don't feel even the smoothness and the harmony that's the flow, easy flow through the borders. You cannot think about stepping from one country to another. It's all the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we go on the air, Mr. Al-Adwani, the doctor, he mentioned to me that he was there recently, 5 days ago, to Al-Khafji.
True.
Could you share these moments with us?
In fact, if you think
was it smooth?
Very smooth, very smooth. I mean, even the timing, despite the time was,
just like you're moving from one room to another.
Exactly. I mean, think about the borders. It's so smooth, especially with the new technology nowadays has been implemented.
You don't have to get off your car. You can just show them your IDs.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Even it's becoming now. We hope that it's got to be implemented from Kuwaiti side. The Saudi side, they implemented paperless sort of procedures to go through the borders. And
but you have to pay for insurance, 13 KD.
That's
each car. Would love to have it for free, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. No. I think not this time. Maybe it's one of the things. One of the things I've heard that in terms of the insurance market, they think thinking about having, you know, a unified insurance market for all GCC countries. So if you have an insurance, if you have insured your car,
this is what I'm trying to focus on. Okay, so it's in the horizon. It might be implemented near future.
Yeah, the insurance market's a quite, you know, big market, and it's very beautiful. I mean, I've seen that, and similar to the European Union system, if you are insured in one country and crossing by another country, that insurance is automatically, you know, cover you for any, you know, third-party liabilities. Hopefully soon we'll see that you know, has got, you know, something got to be done amongst the countries. Yep.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia played a humongous role of liberation of the state of Kuwait back in 1990. And there was a very, very famous saying to the late King Fahd. He said, if Kuwait goes, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia goes after her. Sure. And he opened his doors to the Kuwaiti citizens, as well as the forces all over the world they deployed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to help liberate the state of Kuwait. So God, friends, and specifically the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Do you agree?
Totally agree. I can answer you in both ways, starting from the population, the Saudi population, first of all, how they welcome everybody. I mean, they felt the invasion of you know, Iraq into Kuwait more than we felt it, in fact. I've heard the stories back then. Maybe I was 10 years old. I wasn't that, you know, old, but if you think about it,
no, you look younger.
Thank you. If you think about it, some of the histories I've heard, Saudi people, they left their homes just for Kuwaiti to take over and stay. That is at the beginning of until the government, they set up themselves with, you know, Saudi government, and they, you know, find components and, you know, areas for Kuwaiti to stay in. That tells you the blood bonds between the two countries, and think about it in aspect of, you know, the governmental between Saudi and Kuwait. The infamous says of King Fahd rahmatullah alayhi, when he says either we go together or we stay here together. How beautiful is that? And of I say, it's a commitment. It's a brotherhood commitment. It's a faith. It's a religion. You name it. And that goes back even to the history of his father, King Abdul Aziz, when he partially raised up in Kuwait as well. So you don't feel the differences. You don't feel, you know, any sort of. In fact, the visit of Emir, I would say, is just to enhance rather than opening new windows. It's taken over files, the previous files being discussed for improvement and to, you know, quicken their processes rather than opening new opportunities. Only the new opportunities when it comes to the development of economy, rather than, you know, the bond. The bond is always there. The strengthening of the bonds when they celebrate their, you know, days. We celebrate exactly the same day as well. You could see the whole countries both together visiting each other. We know even the timing when they visit each other in their vacation. So it's something very beautiful we are sharing, you know, of that aspect.
It's a wonderful talking to you. That's why I'm not going to let you go. I have more to show our viewers. That's why we will continue this coverage right after the next report. For over 130 years, the Saudi Kingdom and the state of Kuwait relation have solidified, linking the two nations with a close historical bond characterized by a distinctive nature. That bond was clear during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, with Saudi Arabia taking the strong stance in supporting Kuwait and helping in its liberation. More in this report.
The ties between the state of Kuwait and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are built upon deep-rooted foundations, forged by shared commonalities and historical stances that have been shaped over decades. Relations between the two Gulf nations are distinguished by their profound historical depth and shared characteristics. The historic and brotherly relations between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia stood out starkly when the kingdom supported the state of Kuwait in defending its legitimacy and independence during the blatant Iraqi aggression that began on August 2nd, 1990. The kingdom hosted the Kuwaiti leaders, officials, and ordinary citizens, providing them with all forms of backing, in addition to its effective participation in the international coalition that liberated the country in 1991. Upon the basis that the security of the two countries is inseparable, the brotherly relations have deepened with a host of cooperation agreements at the media, cultural, economic, aviation, commercial, and energy levels. The two countries, key oil producers, maintain close coordination regarding the policy of maintaining the international oil markets. Moreover, the signed accords have ensured a steady two-way flow of commodities across the borders between the two neighboring Gulf countries. On December 11th, 2022, the state of Kuwait and Saudi Arabia signed a memorandum of understanding to develop the offshore Ad-Durra gas field, with a projected daily output of 1 billion cubic feet of gas and 84,000 barrels of liquid gas a day. On September 26, 2023, the Saudi cabinet approved the Kuwaiti-Saudi Accord for establishing joint railways. In aerial transports, on May 14, 2023, Kuwait Airways signed a code-sharing deal with Saudiya, formerly known as Saudi Arabian Airlines.
Well, we're going to keep Mr. Al-Adwani, Dr. Adwani, with us. He's kind of a little bit chilling right now. But now it's time to talk a little bit more with Mr. Jassim Qabazard regarding the same subject. Sir, thank you so much for staying with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Mr. Al-Wasmi.
Could you give us your thought on the importance of His Highness the Emir's visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
First of all, I'd like to commend the amount of information and reporting that you have presented so far on your esteemed program, especially with Dr. Al-Adwani and Mr. Al-Ubaid, and the intermittent informative reports which you have been presenting. You leave very little for me to say, but I would like to perhaps talk about some detail, starting with going back to the year 1891, when Kuwait hosted Sheikh Mubarak Al-Kabir at the time hosted Imam Abdurrahman Al-Faisal Al-Saud and his son King Abdulaziz Abdurrahman Al-Saud in Kuwait because there were military unrest in the region. It was the time of the Ottoman Empire and let's say at the end of the Ottoman Empire. So Kuwait, you can say goes back to that date in terms of its relationship. So this would definitely reflect on the strong and brotherly relationships to date, and in every visit between the two nations, heads of the two nations, this relationship is strengthened, and the people and of both countries are reminded of the strength of this relationship. And today we can see that the reciprocation of communication between the two nations, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, is increasing. I'd like to mention here that in the last 2 years, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has exported to Kuwait in the vicinity of $22 billion of goods. That speaks for the economic relationship between the two countries. I'd like to add from my personal hands-on, let's say, first-hand information of the way Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is welcoming Kuwaiti investors into Saudi Arabia for the past 6 months. I have gone there as a professional consulting engineer and also a service company to tell you really the amount of facilities which have been created online, mostly is electronic. Then you can very, very quickly, very easily, being a Gulf state member, you can start a company. You can have your own company there, or you can have a company with Saudi Arabia participation, or have a representative office there, or let's say a branch. The amount of influx of Kuwaiti businessmen to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a very, very important index to show how the development relationship between the two countries is heading to. So I believe that what I can add is to strengthen the amount of information which has been presented so far. And I like to say that specifically in the southern border between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, namely the city of Khafji, has a very, very large futuristic expansion. And there's going to be a major city right on the border. And you can imagine this will match the city of Al-Khiran. And this will allow for Kuwaitis and Saudis to cross the border very comfortably and enjoy whatever lifestyle is being presented and prepared between the two countries. You mentioned about Al-Durra oil and gas fields, and also we have in southern of Al-Wafra area, which are joint venture areas. In these, just to know that the wealth beneath the earth, offshore and onshore, in terms of oil and gas, is being shared between Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. I think these titles, these important issues can speak for themselves about the strength and the depth and the solidarity between the two nations. Mind you, the demographic interrelationship between Saudi families and Kuwaiti families dates back to hundreds of years. And this itself is a very strong bond between the two nations. And all I can see, inshallah, with God's will, is more development, more strength, and in the, let's say, framework of continued, sustained stability between the two nations. And actually, this will extend to the region, as it was mentioned by our esteemed colleagues, Mr. Al-Adwani and Mr. Ubaid.
Mr. Jassim Qalbazard, always a pleasure talking to you. Honestly, you always give me a very sufficient and a comprehensive answer. Thank you so much, as usual.
Thank you.
Well, as we all know, that Dr. Talal Adwani is still with us here, keeping us warm. And I've seen you write some notes. You have some kind of thoughts in your head. I have lots of questions, but let's go directly to your notes. What exactly you have?
I think your guest rightly said about the very strong relationship, Mr. Jassim Qabazad. He mentioned about the brotherly relationship and the reciprocal relationship between the competing, I would call it the competing relationship between both countries. That's very evident from the visit of Al-Amir. You could see the very warm welcome that's been given to Al-Amir by the Crown Prince Al-Amir Mohammed bin Salman. You could tell the warm, the heartful welcome to the Emir. I don't think this is, it's a privilege more than, to be honest, it's warm feelings, heart to heart, by the leaders of both countries. Also, he mentioned rightly about the resources, the shared resources between the both countries in Al-Wafra areas, Al-Khafji areas. offshore and onshore. We mentioned that with regard to the Dura, Haql al-Dura oil fields, the gas. I think once the production starts, it will be a huge boom for both countries, because think about it, it's not only the oil, it's the gas, the LNG, the liquefied natural gas that will be extracted from the ground. It will help, in fact, internally the Kuwait economy to use it as a clean fuel, and also will enhance the production that's in Saudi Arabia with the same clean fuel. Nowadays, all the shipping companies, they having projections of a future to use the LNG as a fuel for the ships, because think about the bunker, the fuel used for the ships are quite not clean.
It's not.
Not clean, no, but because of the International Maritime Organization, the fundamentals entity that produced those legal system for those ships, has put on board some instructions for all ship companies and countries as well to use clean fuels. Now, this is the beauty where the Gulf countries, led by Saudi Arabia and followed by Kuwait as well, they try to produce the clean fuels. They try to produce what they call it the low sulfur type of fuels, which is environmental friendly and green for the environment. As a substitute for that, because it's quite a long process for the countries to produce, and with the limitation of the current resources which will be developed in the future, LNG can take part as a clean fuel, because it's the most expensive fuels, the most expensive hydrocarbons resources, and the most clean as well for that reason. And
when
it
you
goes
say LNG, that means liquefied natural gas.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It can goes hand to hand with all sort of manufacturings, whether hydrocarbon manufacturings or whether generating electricity, or with it distillation of water. The Gulf countries, they rely on distillation of water due to the lack of resources. I think this is also a very strong files for both countries to discuss the security, the water security. It's a very important, because in the future, if this is not being solved out, how to have a reserve, how to have a natural reservoir, perhaps the rain reservoir or the under the ground water.
Not to mention that oil is being fighted by the other European and the world to cut down on oil, to cut down on the emission. Here comes the challenge for the country who are producing oil. These two countries, they have to think of some other, resources and natural gases and etc. and something like that. You have to compete in the electricity, because most of the world are counting down on importing, the gas and the oil.
Overall, also, if you think about the restriction, the future restriction of the international law, it gives so much of restriction to only use the clean fuel rather than using other type of fuels. Now we see in 5 years' time a lot of capitals in Europe, they banned using internal combustion cars.
What is it in the United Kingdom?
United
they said
Kingdom.
about 2030.
Exactly.
No more gasoline cars on the road.
That is a very short time if you think about it.
What are we going to do?
5.5.
We can't send them oil, can we? No.
Well, this is where it comes. In fact, how we can diversify the economy rather than relying on a single source of oil and gas. In fact, Kuwait took steps ahead. Saudi Arabia took also steps ahead. The economy of Saudi Arabia also having it also not. And this is in fact one of the things that we need to learn from Saudi. They also opening the tourist as part of the investment, internal investment for the country, and they succeed within no time. They succeed within, you know, a very short time. 3-4 years, you could see booming in terms of who would think before to visit Saudi Arabia other than visiting, you know, Al-Haram, Al-Makki, Wal-Madani. And now people, they go, as myself, as you mentioned before, you know, taking your guest, Mr. Jassim, mentioning that I was visiting Saudi Arabia just last week, that five days ago. How
and you had a great time.
Well, a lot of changes. I can tell you, Mr. Wasmi, a lot of changes has been occurred from just 3-4 years time. I mean, this is Kuwait is following suit the steps of Saudi Arabians in terms of, you know, finding other resources of income rather than just relying on one single source.
Dr. Al-Adwani, honestly, time flies when you have a good time. Honestly, we have to cut it off because this is the final thought from you. Thank you so much for staying with us. That was a wonderful conversation and great information. You have a good input regarding this matter. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Well, the state of Kuwait and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will always have a unique bond which links the two countries and peoples. As the two countries continue their march towards further developments, they share one destiny, standing side by side. Thanks to the bond and for many years to go. Thank you all of you to staying with us. This live coverage. Don't go away, we have a lot more on KTV2, and Miss Lulu and I will be here around 7 o'clock to give you the latest news. Stick around.